February 2nd, 2009. In the desolate stretches of Albuquerque's West Mesa, a dog walker named Christine Ross was following her usual route near 118th Street SW, a place where the city's new subdivisions were steadily encroaching on the open desert. As her dog sniffed curiously at the sand, something unexpected jutted from the earth, a human bone, pale against the tan dust. The police were called, and what began as a routine walk soon became the opening scene of one of the most disturbing mysteries in modern New Mexico history. Excavation teams moved in, and as they dug beneath the surface, they uncovered a grim tableau, an entire clandestine cemetery just beyond the edge of the city's sprawl. 11 women and 1 unborn child had been buried in shallow graves, hidden in plain sight, yards away from a rapidly growing neighborhood. The shock sent ripples through Albuquerque and across the nation. Who were these women? Who had decided that their stories would end here, in the indifferent Sound? The West Mesa murders would soon become a symbol for both the forgotten and the unseen. The case revealed not just a pattern of violence, but a pattern of neglect. A place where society's most vulnerable could vanish without a trace, and no one seemed to notice until it was too late. The question lingered in the desert air. How could so many disappear, and why had it taken so long for anyone to start looking? As the crime scene expanded and the true extent of the tragedy was revealed, investigators faced a daunting task. What they would uncover over the following months would challenge every assumption about the case and about the community itself. Victim portraits. Lives interrupted. To understand the depth of the West Mesa tragedy, we have to look back, not just at the grim site in the desert, but at the lives lost there. 11 victims were ultimately identified, each one with her own story, her own struggles, and her own dreams. Most were young women, many in their teens or early 20s. The majority had been living on the fringes of society, struggling with substance abuse or working in sex work to survive. Their disappearances weren't isolated incidents, but part of a larger, troubling pattern that peaked between 2003 and 2004. Among the victims was Sylania Edwards, a 15-year-old girl from Oklahoma, barely more than a child when her life was cut short. Jamie Barella, also just 15, disappeared while out with her older cousin, Evelyn Salazar. Michelle Valdez was 22 and several months pregnant. Heartbreakingly, her unborn baby was buried alongside her. The victims' families had suffered through years of unanswered questions and sleepless nights, many reporting their loved ones missing, but receiving little response from authorities at the time. What linked these women? Most were last seen in or around the downtown and South Valley areas of Albuquerque, neighborhoods marked by poverty and instability. Many had lost contact with their families, drifting away as they fell through society's cracks. At the height of the disappearances, the warning signs were there. A spike in missing persons reports, a string of broken connections. But for too long, their voices went unheard. In retrospect, it's clear. This was never about a single missing person. It was a cluster, a chain of disappearances that should have raised alarms, but instead faded quietly into the background. The West Mesa victims weren't just statistics. They were daughters, sisters, friends. And for every story that ended in the desert, countless others remain untold, still searching for closure. Cracks in the system. The warning signs. The West Mesa, in the early 2000s, was a land in transition, a no-man's land where Albuquerque's expanding suburbs collided with vacant lots and scrub desert. Construction projects slowly crept westward, bulldozers reshaping the landscape. But for years, this expanse remained largely ignored. For someone seeking to hide something, it was the perfect place. And for someone trying to get away with the unthinkable, it offered a dangerous kind of opportunity. Even as the city's skyline grew, the downtown and South Valley neighborhoods just to the east harbored a population at risk. Many were people who struggled daily, survivors of addiction, women caught in cycles of exploitation, those already invisible to most. Reports of missing women trickled in, but the information was scattered. There was no centralized database tracking those who'd vanished from the margins. For law enforcement, the signals were faint, lost in the noise of daily life. But there were cracks, hints that something was deeply wrong. Families came forward, reporting loved ones missing, but too often their pleas were met with silence or bureaucracy. Sometimes the disappearances were chalked up to transient lifestyles or assumed to be voluntary. Yet, looking back, these were not isolated incidents. In 2003 and 2004, a cluster of young women simply vanished, severing ties with family and friends all at once. A pattern, not a coincidence. Meanwhile, on the West Mesa, the ground itself began to change. As developers dug retention ponds for new housing projects, the earth gave up its secrets little by little. Bones emerged, piece by piece, a grim reminder that the warning signs, ignored for years, had led to tragedy on a scale few could imagine. The true question emerges. If these women had come from different backgrounds, would their absence have gone unnoticed for so long? Or did society's indifference provide cover for a predator hiding in plain sight? The night it happened. Timeline of disappearance and discovery. The West Mesa case is not marked by a single night of violence, but by a long, haunting timeline, a sequence of disappearances that stretched over several years, then an explosive discovery that changed everything. It began quietly in 2003. One by one, young women from Albuquerque's vulnerable communities started to vanish. Most were last seen between 2003 and 2004, their trails going cold in the very neighborhoods where they lived and worked. For years, there was no sign of what had happened to them. The city moved on. Construction continued. Life filled in the spaces where these women had once walked. But the desert keeps its secrets only for so long. In February 2009, as Christine Ross walked her dog across a barren lot on 118th Street SW, her discovery of a single human bone led authorities to an unimaginable scene. Over the following weeks, law enforcement excavated the site, uncovering the remains of 11 women and an unborn child, each in a shallow grave, their identities hidden for years by the shifting sands and relentless sun. Forensic experts and detectives raced against time, working to piece together what had happened. Satellite imagery and soil analysis suggested that the last burials had taken place as late as 2005, long after most of the victims were last seen. Investigators pored over missing persons reports, cross-referencing old files with new evidence. They faced a puzzle with missing pieces, a crime scene disturbed by weather, time, and city development. Years passed, but the search for answers did not stop. In December 2010, police released a series of photos of unidentified women, hoping the public might provide crucial information. Some were identified and found alive, eliminating possible connections, but others remained unknown. In July 2018, additional bones were discovered nearby. Tests revealed these were centuries old, unrelated to the case, a chilling reminder of how the land itself is layered with forgotten histories. By 2022, the city had transformed the site into Women's Memorial Park, a gesture of remembrance and a call to action. Yet, beneath the solemn markers and flowers, the same stubborn questions remain. What happened to these women, and who was responsible for their fate? The investigation, forensics, suspects, and dead ends. The investigation into the West Mesa murders was a painstaking journey through forensic evidence, witness statements, and, perhaps most frustratingly, a series of leads that seemed to evaporate into the desert air. From the start, detectives faced a challenge. Most of the victims had been missing for years, their remains exposed to the elements, complicating the work of forensic examiners. Still, methodically, the team worked to identify each victim through dental records and DNA analysis. Patterns began to emerge. Most of the women had known histories involving substance use and sex work, often connected to the same neighborhoods, and the time frame of their deaths was narrowed down to a 2-year window between 2003 and 2005, based on both forensic and satellite evidence. This provided a critical clue, but it was just the beginning. Attention soon turned to possible suspects. One name stood out: Lorenzo Montoya. With a documented history of violence against sex workers, Montoya became a person of intense interest. In 2006, he was shot and killed after allegedly strangling a 19-year-old woman at his own home, a crime that, in hindsight, echoed the violence inflicted on the West Mesa victims. Yet, despite compelling circumstantial evidence, investigators could not place Montoya directly at the burial site or link him conclusively to the murders. Years later, in 2016, police released images from videotapes found at Montoya's residence, hoping to identify additional witnesses or victims, but the breakthrough never came. Other potential suspects surfaced. Joseph Blair, dubbed the mid-school rapist, was convicted of unrelated crimes and imprisoned for 36 years. While his history of sexual assault made him a candidate for suspicion, no solid connection to the West Mesa case was established. Leads involving other individuals, such as Ron Irwin, ultimately went nowhere. And so the investigation became a study in frustration, ruling out suspects, chasing rumors of trafficking rings, and trying to separate internet speculation from hard evidence. For every apparent breakthrough, there was a setback or a dead end. The true perpetrator, it seemed, continued to evade justice, hidden behind the silence of the desert. The turning point: new evidence and shifting theories. The West Mesa investigation unfolded like a slow-burning mystery, where each year brought fresh hope and fresh disappointment. If there was ever a turning point, it arrived through the determined efforts of law enforcement to break through the information deadlock and harness the power of the community. In 2010, with no suspects charged and the victims' families still searching for answers, the Albuquerque Police Department made a bold move. They released a series of photographs, images of unidentified women, possibly connected to the case, in the hope that someone, somewhere, would recognize a face and come forward. This shift in strategy marked a crucial transition, from searching for physical evidence in the barren landscape to digging deeper into the social circles and relationships of the missing women. The focus was now on mapping the network, not just the crime scene. Though some of these women were identified as alive and well, eliminating them as victims, the effort was not in vain. Each identification was another piece of the puzzle, closing off false leads and sharpening the picture of the real victims and those last seen with them. It also revealed the complex web of relationships and risks surrounding Albuquerque's most vulnerable populations. A web that, for years, had provided cover for a predator. In 2016, another window opened. Investigators released images from videotapes seized at the home of Lorenzo Montoya, one of the prime persons of interest. They hoped that someone would recognize a face, a detail, or a setting that might shed new light on his possible involvement. Yet, Despite the publicity, a definitive breakthrough never materialized. Montoya's death in 2006 meant he could never be questioned further, a silence that haunted the case. In 2018, when bones were again unearthed near the original burial site, the city held its breath. But forensic analysis revealed these remains were centuries old, unrelated to the West Mesa case. The finding finally put to rest rampant rumors of new victims, while also confirming that the critical window for the murders remained tightly focused between 2003 and 2005. Despite these efforts, the investigation remained a maze of half-answers and shifting theories. With every new development, one thing became painfully clear. The case would not be solved by a single piece of evidence, but through the persistent, methodical work of rebuilding lost histories and honoring those whose stories had nearly vanished in the sand. No justice yet rewards, community response, and the lingering shadow. Despite years of investigation, the West Mesa murders remain officially unsolved. No one has been charged. No jury has ever heard the evidence. The desert winds still blow across the Women's Memorial Park, now standing where shallow graves once hid a harrowing truth. But the case has left a deep mark on Albuquerque, on law enforcement, and most of all, on the families still searching for answers. Authorities have not given up. The city and law enforcement agencies have offered rewards of up to $100,000 for information that leads to an arrest and conviction. Tip lines remain open. Investigators have made public appeals, including direct contacts for Detective Ida Lopez, the officer who, for years, kept track of missing women when no one else did. The hope is simple: that even the smallest detail, some scrap of memory or long-held secret, might finally bring justice for the 11 women and their unborn child. But the investigation's greatest legacy may be what it revealed about the treatment of society's most vulnerable. For years, the disappearances of women involved in high-risk lifestyles, those struggling with substance use, those trading sex to survive, were too easily ignored, their cases dismissed as routine or self-inflicted tragedy. The West Mesa case exposed the dangers of such indifference, showing how blind spots in data collection, resource allocation, and community attention can create fertile ground for the worst crimes. Today, the Women's Memorial Park is more than a site of mourning. It stands as a testament to lives lost and a challenge to the living. Families gather there to remember, to grieve, and to demand that these women never be forgotten. On anniversaries, candles flicker in the twilight. Police and loved ones renew their pleas for leads, especially as the 16-year mark since discovery approaches in 2025. In the shadow of West Mesa, justice remains elusive, but the call for accountability has never been louder. Each year, the hope remains that someone, somewhere, will finally step forward and help close this dark chapter for good. Consequences and lessons: a community changed, a call for dignity. The aftermath of the West Mesa murders rippled far beyond the crime scene, forcing Albuquerque and the nation to confront uncomfortable truths. Out of the sand and sun, this case became more than a search for a killer. It became a mirror, reflecting the way entire communities can fail their most vulnerable members. The Women's Memorial Park now stands as both a place of mourning and a place of reckoning, honoring the women who lost their lives, but also reminding everyone who visits of the high cost of indifference. For the families, the wounds are still open. Every year brings another anniversary, another vigil, another plea for information. The names of the lost Selania Edwards, Jamie Barella, Michelle Valdez, and so many others echo through city council meetings, newspaper articles, and whispered prayers. Their stories challenge us to remember not just how they died, but how they lived, and how easily they could be overlooked until tragedy struck. Law enforcement has changed its approach in the years since the discovery. Today, there is a renewed commitment to tracking missing persons, especially those at risk, by centralizing databases and improving communication between agencies. Investigators now routinely revisit cold cases, looking for patterns that might once have slipped through the cracks. The West Mesa tragedy serves as a constant reminder that routine disappearances deserve the same urgency and compassion as any other. But perhaps the most lasting lesson is this: no life should be invisible. The West Mesa case exposed the dangers of apathy, the perils of dismissing people because of their circumstances. It challenged everyone, police, families, neighbors, viewers, to ask difficult questions and demand better answers. The park itself, with its flowers, plaques, and the open sky above, is a pledge. These women will not be forgotten. Their stories will continue to matter, driving change and, hopefully, preventing future tragedies. In the end, the West Mesa murders remain unsolved, a scar on the landscape and on the city's conscience. But the legacy of those lost lives endures, calling for justice, compassion, and vigilance. In remembering them, Albuquerque takes its first steps toward healing and toward a future where no one simply disappears into silence. The West Mesa murders exposed a dark undercurrent running through Albuquerque, where 11 women and an unborn child vanished into silence and only years later were discovered in a hidden graveyard on the city's edge. Despite intensive investigation and national attention, the case remains unsolved, haunting a community still seeking justice for the forgotten. If you found this case as haunting as we did, don't forget to like and follow our channel for more mysterious and unsolved true crime stories. Each view, each share, helps keep these victims' stories alive and might bring us one step closer to the truth. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and join us as we uncover the world's darkest mysteries together.